She woke up before the sun that morning as she did most days, the quiet streets of the city still holding their breath while the first sounds of life began to stir. In the small apartment she shared with her younger brother, she quietly moved around, careful not to wake him. Her life had never been easy, but she had grown used to it. Work was hard, long hours, and the pay was modest. But she found a strange satisfaction in it, a pride in knowing that she could take care of herself and her brother. The apartment was small and simple, with just enough room for 2 people to live. A worn couch sat against one wall, a few photographs pinned above it capturing smiles and moments from years ago. A tiny kitchen smelled faintly of the herbs she had used the night before. On the other side of the room, a piano leaned against the wall, its keys slightly yellowed with age. This piano was her secret companion, the one place where she could escape, where the weight of the world seemed lighter. She had learned to play when she was very young, taught by her grandmother, who had once been a musician herself. Her grandmother had passed away a few years ago, leaving the piano as a bittersweet reminder of her love and encouragement. She had practiced quietly, every night after work, perfecting melodies and creating her own, letting the music pour out everything she could not say in words. Music had been her refuge, a place where she could dream beyond the limits of her small life. The city came alive as she stepped outside, the streets now buzzing with the sounds of cars, footsteps, and the distant hum of conversations. She walked briskly, carrying a small bag with her uniform neatly folded inside. Her job at the restaurant was demanding, and she knew she had to be at her best. The restaurant was one of the finest in the city, known for its luxurious decor, exquisite cuisine, and an elite clientele who expected nothing but perfection. When she arrived, the restaurant was already busy, the polished floors reflecting the soft light from the chandeliers above. She greeted her colleagues with a warm smile, exchanging quick words before slipping into her role as a waitress. The work was fast-paced, demanding, and sometimes exhausting, but she moved with a quiet grace, balancing trays, taking orders, and serving with a calm efficiency. She knew the routine by heart, every step and every movement practiced until it became second nature. Despite the pressure, she found joy in small moments, the genuine smile from a customer who appreciated her service, the laughter of a child at a nearby table, the nod of approval from the chef when she handled a tricky situation. These moments reminded her why she worked so hard, why she endured long hours and the occasional rude remark from someone who thought wealth gave them the right to treat others poorly. Her colleagues often noticed her quiet confidence, the way she moved seamlessly through the restaurant, always alert and attentive. They admired her dedication, though they did not know about the secret talent she carried with her, the music that flowed from her fingertips when no one was watching. It was a hidden part of her life, a treasure she guarded closely, knowing that the world outside might not understand. The restaurant was preparing for a special event that evening, a gala for some of the wealthiest patrons in the city. It was a night that promised elegance, fine dining, and entertainment that would leave the guests impressed. She moved through the preparations, ensuring every table was perfect, every detail attended to, all while keeping her mind focused on her duties. The kitchen was a whirlwind of activity, chefs shouting instructions, servers coordinating orders, and managers overseeing every aspect of the event. As she passed the grand piano in the corner of the dining hall, she felt a familiar tug at her heart. The piano had always been more than just an instrument to her. It was a symbol of possibility, of dreams that seemed far away but were still within reach. She lingered for a moment, letting her fingers hover above the keys, imagining the melodies she might play if the chance ever came. The thought brought a quiet smile to her face, a fleeting moment of hope in an otherwise busy day. Throughout the afternoon, she attended to the guests who arrived early, their conversations filled with luxury and leisure. She noticed the subtle differences in how people spoke, the way some looked down on others, and the small acts of kindness that went unnoticed. It reminded her of the world she moved in, a world where appearances often mattered more than substance. Yet she did not let it diminish her spirit. She moved with grace, offering warmth and respect to everyone, no matter their status. By late afternoon, the restaurant was in full swing, the gala just hours away. She found herself stealing glances at the piano whenever she could, imagining what it would feel like to play in front of an audience, to let the music flow freely and touch the hearts of others. The idea seemed distant, almost impossible, but the thought refused to leave her mind. She had spent years honing her skill in the quiet of her apartment, dreaming of a moment like this, though she had no idea if it would ever come. As the sun began to set, the restaurant took on a warmer glow, the chandeliers casting a soft light over the polished surfaces. She moved among the tables, ensuring that every guest felt attended to, anticipating their needs before they even asked. The hum of activity created a rhythm that matched the pulse of her own heart, a sense of anticipation for the night ahead. There was an energy in the air, a feeling that something significant was about to happen, though she did not yet know what it would be. Her shift continued, each moment blending into the next, a dance of efficiency and attention. She balanced trays with practiced ease, offered polite smiles, and listened attentively to the requests of the guests. Yet beneath the surface, her mind wandered to the piano, to the music that lived in her fingers and heart. She imagined melodies flowing into the room, notes rising and falling like a gentle tide, captivating those who listened. The thought brought both excitement and nervousness, a blend of longing and possibility. When a brief lull came, she slipped away to the corner of the dining hall, standing once more by the grand piano. Her fingers brushed the keys, the familiar sensation sending a shiver of anticipation through her. She played a soft, tentative melody, letting the sound fill the empty space for a few moments. It was a secret indulgence, a quiet reminder of her own potential and the dreams she held close. The notes seemed to whisper back to her, encouraging her, affirming that she was capable of more than she often allowed herself to believe. The sound of laughter and conversation pulled her back to the reality of her duties, but the memory of the melody lingered. She returned to her tasks with renewed focus, carrying the secret thrill of music with her as she moved through the restaurant. Each interaction, each gesture, each smile she offered carried a quiet confidence born from the knowledge that she possessed something extraordinary, even if the world had yet to see it. As the evening drew closer, the restaurant began to fill with more distinguished guests, each one arriving with an air of expectation. She adjusted her uniform, smoothing out any wrinkles, ensuring that she presented herself with poise and professionalism. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, the kind of night where anything could happen, where small moments might lead to unexpected opportunities. She felt the familiar flutter of nervous excitement, a mix of readiness and hope, knowing that this night could be different from all the others. In a quiet moment before the event began, she allowed herself to breathe deeply, to center herself amidst the chaos. She thought of her grandmother, of the lessons learned and the music shared, of the belief in her talent that had never wavered. That belief had carried her through countless days of hard work, through moments of doubt and fatigue. Now, as she prepared to face the busy night ahead, it felt stronger than ever, a quiet flame burning at the center of her heart. The first guests arrived, their presence commanding attention, their attire glittering under the soft lights. She moved among them with ease, taking orders, offering recommendations, and ensuring that every need was met. Her movements were fluid, her attention sharp, and her demeanor warm and inviting. Yet beneath it all, the piano called to her, a silent invitation to step beyond the role she had always known, to share a piece of herself that few had ever witnessed. The restaurant buzzed with excitement, the preparations complete, and the stage set for an unforgettable evening. She continued her work, her eyes occasionally drifting to the piano, imagining the notes, the melodies, and the music that could flow from her hands if the opportunity ever arose. It was a night full of possibilities, a night that held the promise of something extraordinary, though she could not yet see how it would unfold, and so she moved through the restaurant, a quiet force of grace and dedication, carrying her dreams in her heart and the music in her fingers, waiting for the moment when the world might finally hear the brilliance she had kept hidden for so long. The evening finally arrived, and the restaurant was alive with the chatter of distinguished guests, the clinking of glasses and the soft rustle of elegant fabrics. The atmosphere was warm and filled with anticipation. The staff moved with precision, attending to every table, ensuring each guest felt valued and cared for. She worked tirelessly, weaving through the crowd, balancing trays filled with delicate dishes and glasses of sparkling wine, her mind still partially occupied with the piano. The main hall was grand, with a stage at the far end where a famous pianist was scheduled to perform. The pianist was well known, his reputation stretching across the city as a master of his craft. He was also known for his pride, often treating others with a mixture of disdain and superiority. Tonight he would showcase his talent to an audience that expected perfection and a display of brilliance. She moved among the tables, listening to the conversations of the guests, many of whom were wealthy and influential. Their discussions were about investments, travel, and social events. She offered polite smiles and attentive service, never letting her own thoughts show. Yet she could not help but notice the way some of the guests looked down on the staff, treating them as invisible, and others who offered a kind word or a gentle nod, acknowledging the effort behind the service. As the pianist prepared for his performance, he began to speak to the audience, introducing himself with a flourish. He was confident, almost cocky, sharing stories of his past performances and the accolades he had received. Then, with a mischievous glint in his eye, he challenged someone from the audience to join him at the piano. The crowd laughed lightly, assuming it was a playful gesture, expecting no one would dare to try. It was all part of his performance, an attempt to entertain with the idea of an amateur stepping up to the stage. She had been near the piano earlier, clearing dishes from a nearby table, and had hummed softly, unaware that anyone had noticed. The pianist paused mid-sentence, his gaze falling upon her. He raised an eyebrow, surprised by the melody he had heard. The audience murmured as he called her forward, his tone playful yet tinged with disbelief. She froze for a moment, caught between the shock of being singled out and the instinct to decline. But something inside her stirred, a quiet courage fueled by years of practice, patience and dreams deferred. She hesitated briefly, then stepped forward, the audience watching with curiosity and amusement. The pianist smirked, clearly expecting an entertaining failure. The crowd leaned in, some whispering among themselves, others curious to see how this would unfold. She felt a mixture of nerves and excitement, her heart racing, but she took a deep breath, steadying herself. Every step toward the piano felt surreal, like walking through a dream she had carried quietly for years. When she reached the piano, she paused for a moment, placing her fingers lightly on the keys. The weight of the audience's gaze pressed down, and the pianist leaned back, arms crossed, confident that nothing extraordinary would happen. She could feel the tension, the anticipation, and the skepticism in the air, yet she also felt a strange sense of liberation. This was her moment, her chance to share what she had nurtured in secret. She began to play softly at first, testing the keys and feeling the familiar connection between her fingers and the piano. The notes flowed smoothly, delicate and precise, each one carrying a subtle emotion that caught the attention of the listeners. The melody grew, gaining confidence and depth, filling the room with a sound that was unexpectedly rich and beautiful. The audience, initially bemused, grew silent, captivated by the music that seemed to rise effortlessly from her hands. The pianist watched in disbelief, his smirk fading as he listened. The skill, the passion, and the emotion in her playing were undeniable. Each note resonated through the hall, weaving a tapestry of sound that held everyone's attention. Guests shifted in their seats, leaning forward, their eyes wide with surprise and admiration. She played with a natural grace, her fingers dancing across the keys, translating years of hidden practice into a performance that felt both spontaneous and masterful. For a few minutes, the world seemed to disappear. The chatter, the clinking of glasses, the opulence of the surroundings, all faded into the background. There was only the music, a story being told without words, speaking directly to the hearts of those who listened. She lost herself in the performance, every emotion she had ever felt, every dream she had ever held, flowing through her hands and into the melody. It was more than playing. It was a conversation between her and the world, a declaration of her talent that no one could ignore. The audience sat transfixed, caught between disbelief and awe. Whispers of amazement rippled through the hall as the realization set in that this was no ordinary performance. She was not a trained concert pianist in a traditional sense, yet her playing had a depth and emotion and a skill that rivaled the best. The music carried a story of perseverance, dedication, and hidden brilliance, resonating with everyone in the room. The pianist, humbled, moved closer, his expression a mixture of shock and respect. He had expected to witness a modest attempt, perhaps a few clumsy notes, and instead he was witnessing a display of raw talent and emotion that left him speechless. For the first time that night, the audience was not just observing. They were feeling, connecting to something genuine and extraordinary. As she reached the final notes of the piece, She allowed herself a moment of pause, letting the last note linger in the air. The room held its breath for a heartbeat, as if afraid to break the spell. Then, as the final sound faded, the silence was shattered by an eruption of applause. Hands clapped, feet stomped, and voices cheered, filling the hall with a wave of admiration and excitement. The energy was electric, a shared acknowledgement of the talent and passion that had just been revealed. She sat back for a moment, her hands hovering above the keys, her chest heaving slightly with the effort and emotion of the performance. She looked at the audience, taking in their expressions: astonishment, joy, respect, and genuine appreciation. It was a moment she had never imagined, a culmination of years of quiet dedication and hope, now recognized by those who had once been strangers in a distant and intimidating world. The pianist approached, extending his hand with a smile that was no longer smug but filled with genuine admiration. He congratulated her, his voice sincere, acknowledging the skill and emotion she had brought to the performance. The guests continued to applaud, some standing, others leaning forward, all captivated by the unexpected brilliance they had witnessed. Conversations resumed in whispers of amazement, many expressing their wonder at the hidden talent they had stumbled upon in such an unlikely place. One of the wealthy patrons, moved by the performance, approached her with an offer to connect her with music producers and contacts who could help her develop her talent further. Another guest complimented her on the emotion conveyed through her playing, praising her for touching hearts in a way that money and status could not achieve. She felt a mixture of disbelief, pride, and excitement, realizing that her secret passion had finally found its audience. As the applause settled, and the pianist prepared to continue with his own performance, she quietly stepped back, returning to her duties with a new sense of confidence. The restaurant seemed brighter, filled with energy and appreciation, and even the staff looked at her with a new respect. The night continued, but for her, nothing would ever be quite the same. She had crossed an invisible boundary, moving from the world of serving to a moment of brilliance that could not be ignored. Through the rest of the evening, she moved among the tables, still attentive to her responsibilities, but with a newfound sense of pride and purpose. The memory of the performance lingered, a quiet triumph that no one could take away. It was a moment of revelation, not just for the audience, but for herself, a confirmation that her dreams were valid, her talent real, and her place in the world of music within reach. And as the gala drew to a close, she allowed herself a private smile, a gentle acknowledgement of what had happened. The night had changed her life in a way she could not yet fully comprehend, opening doors and possibilities she had only dreamed of. For the first time, she felt the weight of potential, the power of her own skill, and the truth that sometimes brilliance could be found in the most unexpected places, ready to shine when the world least expected it. After the gala night, the memory of the performance stayed with her, vivid and powerful. Every time she closed her eyes, she could hear the notes she had played, the hush of the crowd, and the thunderous applause that had followed. It was a feeling she had never experienced before, a mixture of pride, exhilaration, and disbelief. Her hands itched to play again, to feel the keys beneath her fingers, to let the music flow and speak in ways words never could. The following morning, she returned to work at the restaurant, but the atmosphere was different. Colleagues approached her with smiles and quiet congratulations. The chefs nodded approvingly as she passed by the kitchen, and even the managers seemed to regard her with a new level of respect. It was as if the world had subtly shifted around her, acknowledging a talent that had been hidden in plain sight for so long. Guests from the gala had shared stories and recommendations with friends, and soon, some returned, curious to see the young waitress who had amazed everyone with her piano skills. She moved through the tables with the same grace and attention to detail, but now she carried a quiet confidence, a subtle glow that others noticed even if they could not explain it. She smiled at her patrons, her heart light with the memory of her success. In the quiet moments when the restaurant was less busy, she would sit by the piano in the corner of the dining hall. Sometimes she played softly while clearing her mind, letting the music wash over her and soothe the lingering tension from long shifts. The piano had always been her refuge, and now it also became a symbol of recognition and possibility. She imagined the possibilities ahead, a future where music could be a larger part of her life, not just a secret indulgence. One afternoon, a man approached her while she was setting up a table. He introduced himself as a music producer, having heard of her performance at the gala. His tone was respectful, filled with genuine interest and admiration. He asked if she would consider recording some pieces, performing in small concerts, or even collaborating on a project. She felt her pulse quicken, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was the opportunity she had long dreamed of, the kind of recognition that could change her life. She listened carefully, feeling a sense of realism mixed with hope. She had spent years honing her skill in private, dreaming of such moments, but reality often had a way of making dreams seem distant. Yet here it was, a tangible possibility, presented not as a fantasy but as an offer from someone who recognized her talent. She agreed to discuss it further, feeling cautious optimism and an unfamiliar but welcome sense of confidence. Back at home, she spent her evenings practicing more rigorously, focusing on both technique and emotion. She wanted to be ready for any opportunity that came her way. Her younger brother watched her sometimes, fascinated and proud, asking questions about the music and the stories she wanted to tell through it. Their shared moments became more frequent, and her music filled their small apartment, creating an atmosphere of warmth and possibility. The restaurant continued its busy rhythm, and she moved through her shifts with the same dedication and care as always. Yet there was a change in her approach. She no longer saw her work merely as a necessity, but as a bridge to a larger life. Every polite word, every attentive gesture, and every smile were not just service. They were steps in a journey that had suddenly expanded beyond the familiar walls of the restaurant. Word of her talent spread slowly but steadily. Friends of the gala guests mentioned her name in conversations, and soon, invitations came for private gatherings where her music could be shared. At first she was hesitant, unsure if she was ready to step into spaces so different from the restaurant. But with each encouragement, each small performance, her confidence grew. She realized that her music was not just a secret. It was a gift meant to be shared. Her first small concert took place in a cozy room filled with attentive listeners. The environment was far from the grandeur of the gala, yet it was intimate and personal, giving her a new perspective on performing. She could see faces light up with each note, hear sighs of appreciation, and feel the immediate connection that music created. It was a revelation. She had always known music was powerful, but experiencing it so directly with people who truly listened changed her understanding of her own abilities. The pianist from the gala reached out to her after hearing about her subsequent performances. He expressed his respect and offered guidance, suggesting pieces that would challenge her and elevate her technique. She listened carefully, grateful for the mentorship, and began incorporating new styles and complex arrangements into her repertoire. The piano had become not just a refuge but a path to growth, a way to continually expand her skill and expression. As her reputation grew, so did the demands on her time. She balanced her restaurant work with lessons, practice, and small performances. It was exhausting yet invigorating. Each day felt fuller, richer, and more meaningful. She began to see the impact her music could have, not just on herself but on the people who listened, the lives she could touch, and the inspiration she could provide. It was a responsibility she welcomed, not as a burden but as a privilege. Through all this, she remained grounded. She remembered her roots, the long hours in the restaurant, the quiet moments at the piano in her apartment, and the dreams that had kept her going. Her humility and dedication never wavered, even as recognition and opportunities multiplied. She understood that talent alone was not enough. It was discipline, persistence, and heart that made a difference. Her life began to change in subtle ways. She started being invited to radio shows, local cultural events, and interviews that focused on hidden talents and inspiring stories. Each experience gave her more confidence and broadened her understanding of the world she was stepping into. Yet she never lost sight of the simple joys, playing a piece perfectly, the smile of someone touched by her music, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had earned every moment through dedication. One evening, after a long day of work and practice, she returned to the restaurant for a final shift before a weekend of performances. As she moved through the tables, she noticed the guests watching her with a new awareness, some curious, others admiring, but all recognizing that there was more to her than the uniform she wore. The recognition was subtle yet profound, a shift in perception that reflected the journey she had embarked upon. When the restaurant closed and the last guests had left, She lingered for a moment by the piano, her fingers lightly brushing the keys. She played softly, almost as if sharing her gratitude with the instrument that had been her companion for so long. The notes were tender, filled with emotion, reflecting both the struggles and the triumphs that had brought her to this point. It was a private celebration, a quiet acknowledgement of her own growth and the journey ahead. As she walked home that night, the streets were quiet, and the city seemed to hold its breath, mirroring the calm and contentment in her heart. She thought about the days to come, the challenges and the opportunities, and felt ready to face them. The music was no longer just a secret. It was her voice, her expression, and her path forward. She knew there would be more obstacles, more moments of doubt, but she also knew that her talent, determination, and heart would guide her through. Her journey from the quiet practice in a small apartment to the unexpected performance at the gala had transformed her. It had shown her that talent could shine anywhere, that opportunity often arrived when least expected, and that perseverance and passion could create moments that changed lives. She had stepped into a larger world, and while the path ahead was still uncertain, she carried within her a certainty that her music would continue to speak, inspire, and leave an impact wherever she went. In the quiet of the night, she looked forward with hope, excitement, and a deep appreciation for the journey that had brought her this far. She had begun as a humble waitress with a secret passion, and now she was a musician whose brilliance could no longer be hidden. The world had seen a glimpse of her talent, and she knew this was only the beginning of a life filled with music, expression, and the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Months passed since her unforgettable performance at the gala, and her life was slowly but steadily changing. She still worked at the restaurant, but now with a sense of purpose and pride that went far beyond her daily tasks. Each interaction with guests carried a quiet confidence, and her colleagues noticed it too. She moved through the restaurant with a calm, natural authority, balancing her duties with the growing opportunities her music was bringing. One afternoon, a special invitation arrived from an upscale cultural club. They had heard of her piano performance and wanted her to play at an upcoming charity event. She felt a surge of excitement mixed with nervousness. This would be her first time performing for an audience outside the restaurant setting, and the stakes felt higher. She spent the following days practicing tirelessly, focusing not only on technique but on expressing the depth of emotion she wanted to convey through her music. The night of the charity event arrived, and she stepped into a grand room she had only seen in magazines before. The venue was filled with polished wooden floors, chandeliers, and an audience dressed in elegant attire. She took a deep breath, feeling the same nerves she had felt months ago at the gala, but now tempered with experience and confidence. Her fingers hovered over the keys, and when she played the first note, a hush fell over the room. The melody filled the space, soft at first, then rising with a quiet intensity that captured every listener. As she played, the audience was spellbound. The music carried not just skill but a story of struggle, perseverance, and quiet triumph. Faces lit up with recognition of the emotion behind each note. Some closed their eyes to absorb the full depth, while others leaned forward, mesmerized. She felt a profound connection with the listeners, as if her music was speaking directly to their hearts. It was a reminder that her talent had a purpose far beyond herself, that her gift could touch lives in ways she had never imagined. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. She stood for a moment, absorbing the reaction, a mixture of humility and pride swelling inside her. People came forward to congratulate her, expressing genuine admiration for her talent and the emotions she had conveyed. A few influential figures approached, offering opportunities for collaborations, recordings, and even invitations to larger performances. Each conversation opened doors that had previously seemed closed, revealing the impact a single moment of brilliance could have on the course of a life. The pianist who had first noticed her at the gala reached out once again. He praised her growth and offered guidance, suggesting ways to refine her technique and expand her repertoire. She listened carefully, grateful for the mentorship, yet she also realized that her own style and voice were developing uniquely. The balance between learning from others and embracing her individuality became a cornerstone of her artistic journey. Back at home, she dedicated her evenings to practice, composing new pieces and exploring different styles. The piano in her apartment became a sanctuary, a place to experiment and grow, Her younger brother often watched, inspired by her dedication and skill. They shared quiet moments together, talking about music, life, and the dreams that now felt within reach. The bond between them grew stronger, grounded in mutual respect and admiration. As she navigated this new phase of her life, she also learned to handle the pressures and expectations that came with recognition. Some nights were exhausting, balancing restaurant work with performances and practice. But she approached each challenge with discipline and patience. She discovered resilience she had never fully recognized, a quiet strength that allowed her to maintain balance and composure amidst the demands. The restaurant remained a grounding point for her. She continued to interact with guests not just as a server, but as someone whose presence carried inspiration. Patrons who had heard about her performances would sometimes watch her with curiosity and appreciation. Her colleagues, too, felt a sense of pride, knowing that one of their own had stepped into a wider world while remaining humble and dedicated. She realized that her journey was not only about personal growth, but also about the ripple effect it could have on those around her. The next opportunity came unexpectedly. A local television station reached out to feature her story, highlighting her journey from a restaurant waitress to a pianist admired by many. She agreed, seeing it as a chance to inspire others who might have hidden talents or dreams. The filming was both exciting and nerve-wracking, but she approached it with grace and authenticity, sharing her experiences and the lessons she had learned. The segment aired and the response was overwhelming. Messages of encouragement and admiration poured in, many from people who saw a reflection of their own dreams in her story. With each passing week, her schedule became fuller, filled with performances, interviews, and practice sessions. Yet she remained grounded, remembering the small apartment, the worn couch, and the quiet nights of practice that had led her here. She understood that every note she played carried a history of hard work, perseverance, and unwavering belief in herself. The recognition she received was not just for talent, but for the dedication and heart she poured into her music. One evening, after a performance at a small but prestigious venue, she returned to the piano alone. She played softly, reflecting on the journey that had brought her from serving tables to performing for an attentive and appreciative audience. Each note seemed to carry a story, a memory of the struggles, the small victories, and the unwavering hope that had guided her. She felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the opportunities, but for the journey itself, the growth, the learning, and the moments that shaped her. As she continued to perform, she began to think about the future more clearly. She wanted to compose her own pieces, to share her music in ways that could reach more people, and to mentor others who, like her, had talent waiting to be discovered. Her vision expanded beyond herself, encompassing a desire to inspire and uplift, to create spaces where passion and dedication were celebrated. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a bridge to possibility, connection, and fulfillment. Her life had transformed in ways she had never imagined. From the humble beginnings of quiet practice in her apartment to the first public performance at the gala, each step had built upon the last, creating a journey marked by persistence, courage, and talent. She understood now that opportunities often arose when least expected, and that hidden brilliance could shine in the most unlikely places. The recognition she received was not the end, but a continuation of a journey, one that promised growth, challenges, and fulfillment. Through it all, she remained humble and grounded. Knowing that every achievement was a step in a larger journey, she cherished the small victories as much as the grand moments, finding joy in the process of learning, creating, and sharing her music. Her story became one of inspiration, not just for those who heard her play, but for anyone who dared to dream, work, and believe in themselves. The piano became her constant companion, a source of comfort, expression, and connection. Each performance, each practice session, and each new opportunity was a testament to the power of perseverance and passion. She had moved from serving tables to performing for those who had once seemed unreachable, yet she carried herself with the same humility and grace that had defined her from the start. And so, as the nights grew quiet and the city settled into calm, she played not for fame or recognition, but for the love of music, the joy of creation, and the knowledge that her talent had found its place in the world. Her journey from the restaurant to the stage was a story of brilliance emerging from humility, of dreams realized through dedication, and of the unexpected moments that could change a life forever. She had discovered not just her talent but her purpose, and with each note, she continued to share it with the world. Her journey had reached a point where the line between work, music, and life seemed to blend beautifully. She still visited the restaurant not out of necessity, but out of love for the place that had shaped her early days. Each table she served carried a sense of familiarity, but now it was accompanied by the quiet pride of someone whose talents were finally recognized. Her colleagues greeted her warmly, inspired by the journey she had taken from quiet dedication to public admiration. Opportunities continued to grow. Invitations to perform in bigger venues, both local and international, became a part of her life. Each concert brought new faces, new stories, and new challenges. She approached every performance with the same care and humility that had defined her from the beginning. She understood that the audience sought more than just music. They sought connection, emotion, and authenticity. And she delivered, letting her heart guide her fingers as they danced across the keys. Traveling for performances opened her eyes to a world she had only dreamed of. Cities with towering buildings, theaters filled with eager listeners, and streets buzzing with life became part of her new reality. She embraced every experience, learning not only about music but about the cultures and people she encountered. Each journey enriched her artistry, giving her new inspiration and perspectives that shaped her compositions and performances. Her personal life also evolved. She remained close to her younger brother, who continued to be a source of joy and grounding. He admired her not only for her talent but for the way she carried herself, balancing humility with achievement. They shared quiet evenings at home, talking about music, life, and dreams, and he often encouraged her to compose pieces that reflected her experiences and emotions. Their bond, strengthened through shared history and mutual respect, was a constant source of support. The piano in her apartment, once her private sanctuary, became a place of creation and reflection. She began composing her own pieces, inspired by the journey she had taken and the people she had met. Each composition was infused with emotion, telling stories of struggle, hope, and triumph. These pieces were more than music. They were expressions of her life, a way to share her journey with others in a language beyond words. Her performances grew in depth and complexity. She experimented with different genres, blending classical techniques with contemporary melodies, creating a unique style that resonated with diverse audiences. Listeners were drawn not only to her skill but to the sincerity and emotion behind each note. She understood that music had the power to move people in ways that words could not, and she embraced that responsibility with dedication and care. Media attention continued to highlight her story, portraying her as an inspiration to many. She was invited to speak at events, share her experiences with aspiring musicians, and mentor young talents who reminded her of herself. She took these opportunities seriously, understanding the importance of encouraging others to pursue their dreams despite challenges. Her story was no longer just about music. It was about hope, perseverance, and the realization that talent could thrive anywhere, even in the most unlikely places. Despite the growing fame, she remained grounded. She never forgot the nights spent practicing alone in her apartment, the long shifts at the restaurant, or the quiet determination that had fueled her early journey. These experiences kept her humble, reminding her that success was not just about talent but also about resilience, patience, and heart. She carried this philosophy into every performance, every interaction, and every new opportunity that came her way. One evening, after a major performance in a prestigious hall, she walked off the stage to the sound of applause echoing behind her. The feeling was familiar yet ever exhilarating. She realized that each performance was not just a showcase of her talent, but a dialogue with the audience, a sharing of emotion and humanity. She had grown from the nervous girl who hummed quietly in a restaurant to a confident artist who could touch the hearts of hundreds with a single piece. Her compositions began to gain recognition as well. Small recordings of her original pieces circulated online, attracting attention from both music enthusiasts and professional critics. People commented on the authenticity, emotion, and depth of her work, often expressing surprise that such artistry had grown from someone who had started in humble circumstances. She felt a quiet pride, knowing that her journey had inspired others to believe in their own potential. As she continued to navigate this new chapter, she realized the importance of balance. Work, music, family, and personal growth all needed attention. She scheduled her days carefully, allowing time for practice, performances, rest, and moments with her brother. She discovered that success was not just about achieving recognition, but about maintaining harmony in all aspects of life. This balance gave her clarity, focus, and the energy to continue pursuing her dreams with dedication. She also began to reflect on the impact she could make beyond music. She partnered with local community programs, teaching young children to play instruments and encouraging them to explore their own creativity. She shared her story openly, highlighting that talent could be nurtured in unexpected places and that perseverance could lead to extraordinary opportunities. These experiences brought her joy and fulfillment, reminding her that her journey was about more than personal achievement. It was about inspiring and uplifting others. Her relationship with the restaurant remained meaningful. She visited occasionally, not for work but to reconnect with the people who had been part of her early days. The familiar sounds, the warm faces of colleagues, and the simple routines provided a sense of grounding, a reminder of where she had started and the hard work that had paved the way for her success. She often played the piano for small gatherings there, bringing joy and surprise to those who had witnessed her humble beginnings. Her life was now filled with music, recognition, travel, and personal growth, yet each note she played carried a reminder of the journey she had undertaken, the struggles she had overcome, and the quiet determination that had never wavered. She understood that every performance was an opportunity to connect, inspire, and share a piece of herself with the world. This understanding shaped her approach to music and life. Infusing every action with purpose and care, over time, she also began to explore collaborations with other musicians, blending her style with others to create innovative and compelling performances. These collaborations expanded her horizons, introduced her to new techniques, and enriched her understanding of music as a universal language. Each project became an opportunity to learn, grow, and share her unique perspective, further establishing her presence in the world of music. Despite all the accolades, she remained humble and approachable. Friends, fans, and colleagues admired not only her talent, but also her authenticity and kindness. She remembered the lessons of her early life, the value of hard work, the importance of humility, and the power of patience. These lessons guided her interactions and decisions, ensuring that success did not change her core values but rather enhanced her ability to make a positive impact. In quiet moments, she would sit at her piano alone, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. The music flowed naturally, a blend of past experiences, present emotions, and hopes for the future. She played for herself as much as for others, finding solace, inspiration, and joy in the act of creation. The piano remained her constant companion, a symbol of perseverance, passion, and the beauty of hidden talent brought to light. Looking back, she realized how far she had come, from the shy, hard-working waitress with a secret love for music to a recognized pianist touching lives across cities and stages. The journey had been filled with challenges, unexpected opportunities, and moments of doubt. Yet it had also been rich with growth, discovery, and triumph. Each step had built upon the last, creating a life that was both rewarding and inspiring. Her story was now one of inspiration, a testament to the power of dedication, passion, and resilience. She had discovered that talent could flourish anywhere, that opportunities often appeared when least expected, and that humility and hard work were as important as skill. Her life was a living example that dreams, no matter how quietly nurtured, could be realized with patience and perseverance. And so, as she played her final piece for the night, the notes filling the room with warmth, emotion, and brilliance, she knew that her journey was ongoing. Each performance, each composition, and each opportunity to share her music was a continuation of a path she had begun with quiet determination. She had gone from serving tables to inspiring hearts, from hidden talent to recognized brilliance, and with every note she played, she celebrated the power of dreams, the beauty of perseverance, and the joy of sharing her gift with the world. The music would continue, and so would her journey, filled with promise, possibility, and the quiet magic that comes from following one's passion with heart and courage.